What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
Peace and love, party people. This is the BKMC, the MCO, the Little Lebowski Urban Achiever, the host of the world's best podcast, Talib Kweli, and always, and as usual, I have my lovely and talented and funny and thought-provoking co-host, Jasmin Leigh, in the place to be. What's up, Jasmin? How you feeling?
Woo! Where's my claps?
Yeah. I'm jealous because I don't get no claps.
You don't need any claps, Talib. You get your flowers every day, and I'm doing just so well.
Well, today we're here to give flowers to, and I'm not exaggerating here, one of my favorite human beings on the planet. This guest today grew up in South Central, right? Alongside the great Phil the Agony and the great Mitchie Slick, he is part of the LA West Coast supergroup Strong Arm Steady, Deep Hearted, Arms and Hammers, In Search of Stoney Jackson, all types of mixtapes that we're gonna get into. On the solo grind, he's been doing his thing. Everything's Nothing is a great album. White Boys with Shafiq is a great album. He has worked with some of the best luminaries in this business, from Snoop Dogg to Dr. Dre to Mr. X to the Z Exhibit. When he's not rapping and performing, he is acting. You've seen him on Harry's Law. You've seen him as Tobias Whale on Black Lightning. You heard his voice in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse as Tombstone. This is one of my good friends, a man I've worked with very closely, a person I spent a lot of time with, a crucial voice in the culture. When this man's name comes up, and it comes up on the show often, you only hear great things about him. Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to give a warm People's Party welcome to Shotgun Charlemagne, Dizzaline, Yellowface, California Gold, Bitch Slap Harris, Ben Davis, Captain Crunch, the mayor of Los Angeles.
Wow.
Krondon in the place.
Oh, man. I love you, man.
I love you too,
You
bro.
know I love you, brother.
No doubt.
Those names I haven't heard in so long. I'm so ashamed of myself.
Shotgun
Which one
Charlemagne
are
is
you
a good
ashamed
one.
of the
Shotgun
most?
Charlemagne was one of my favorites, though, to be honest.
Do you remember when I asked you about Ben Davis?
Yeah, I do.
You broke it down. Break it down for People's Party.
Ben Davis is, for those that know, in the street culture of Los Angeles, it's actually a clothing brand. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows it's famous for the workman's gear that is Dickies. I think Dickies is synonymous with West Coast culture, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And those that really know intricately, it wasn't just Dickies. Mm-hmm. Ben Davis was also workman's gear that gangsters, Latin and black, brown and black alike, wore to represent their culture and different aspects of the neighborhood. And what made it funny is it was which later on in life I decided to take that name away from me for this reason, but the logo of Ben Davis was this funny looking monkey on the. And
I did not know that.
Yes, it was a monkey and a gorilla really, and it had Ben Davis under, and it was very, very funny to me as I was developing my character and moniker in rap. Mm-hmm. I always said one thing that I said to people is that I wasn't a blood or a Crip, but I was a blip because I encompassed all sides of LA culture, and that was my way of paying homage to how we represented ourselves. So like when you see I know you see if you look at old movies and you see that polo shirt with all the stripes on it, right? That you see in every gangster movie or especially Latin movie about gang culture in LA or something. That was a Ben Davis shirt originally. So that's where Ben Davis comes from.
No doubt. The last time I saw you, we were, I think, at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
And Jared, who I partnered with on the show, was with us. And you got him drunk, and I've never seen Jared drunk.
We were getting drunk.
So I want to thank you for that.
Yes, that was incredible. We were drinking, and Jared, and then he found himself at some point in the night, and he was by himself for a while. He was drunk, and I'm glad he made it out of there okay.
Me too.
Yeah.
We got him home.
That was a fun night, though.
Let's hear it for Jared.
Give
yourself a round of applause.
For sure. Shout out to Jared, too, man.
Most people you can picture drunk. I can't picture a drunk Jared.
That's what I'm saying.
He always looks so fatherly and together.
So funny. No, I don't want to embarrass him more than we already have. But,
let's do it.
But he was enjoying the liquor.
He was.
And he, like I said, that's why I say I felt like he found himself because he had a lot
It
of
was like an
introspective
ayahuasca
moments. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right. You were his Peru.
It was totally ayahuasca-ish,
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
was. It was.
Okay, that's good. Didn't know cognac could do that.
Yeah, cognac.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about cognac later, too.
For sure.
Born and raised in South Central.
Yeah.
The home of Harry O, Freeway Rick, and Monster Cody, as you say in your lyrics.
Yeah.
You call Ice Cube the Shakespeare of our era.
I do believe.
And you and Phil redid Steady Mobbin'.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the legacy of Ice Cube.
My God. Yeah. I do believe that.
Break it down.
As far as for rap, I mean, if you think about it, the infrastructure that is West Coast music, he designed it with Boys in the Hood and Dope Man, and Straight Outta Compton in general. You know, the album itself, which he wrote, would say about 70% of that. 60-70% of that, along with MC Ren. It designed the infrastructure that we know now to be, Snoop Dogg and I mean, so The Game, Strong Arm Steady, Exhibit. All things in between, the Alcoholics, like you name it. I mean, he was the blueprint to it, and then even in the things that he was able to go do very, very soon after NWA with America's Most Wanted and Death Certificate. Kill at Will. Can't forget Kill at Will, right? Jacking for Beats, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about what he did.
He
with
introduced
Jackin' for
me
Beats.
to the concept of EP. I didn't know you could do an EP.
An EP.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, honestly, if you think about Strong Arm Steady, I didn't think that you could really make a hit out of somebody else's record.
Right.
That's what Jackin' for Beats was.
Right. And he did it unapologetically.
Unapologetically, and I think
And
that...
even if you're down with my crew.
Yeah.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. I jack them too.
Yeah. So that, if you look at, what happened with our group and, the name, Strong Arm Steady Marvin, and we made a real name in taking other people's records, and I believe doing it better than they did it. And and I say that humbly, if that's possible. And and I give Ice Cube a lot of the credit. His records, Summer Vacation and Dead Homies. And I'm talking about, this is after NWA.
Yeah.
Right? He consistently designed our infrastructure, and he told the stories, right? That ended up, he became our voice. And then I believe, and he had major success, and he went on to do great things after this. But I believe that Today Was a Good Day was the culmination of all of that.
Yeah.
Right? Where he wrote a movie in 3 minutes.
And then he came with Friday after that.
And
Yeah.
And exactly. So if you really study it like we do, you see that
And then you guys
he
came
wrote
with
Friday.
the Debo series.
Exactly.
On Strong Arm, so it's all connected.
It was always connected to Cube. I think
Yeah.
he always remained for us and Phil the Agony. We actually, when Phil was just talking about this yesterday or today, we talk every day, but one of these days about this, that like Cube is the foundation, and NWA for sure, Eazy-E the voice, but I say Shakespeare because Cube was the writer.
Yeah.
He was actually articulating what we heard.
Yeah.
In written form.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right, so I got to say this. I got to make a correction on this show because, and I'm going to say this in front of you.
Okay.
Because it's important.
Okay.
We had Tom Morello on this show.
Okay, yeah.
And, I don't know as much about rock and roll as Tom Morello does, obviously, but I'm a musician. I know a lot about rock. I know more about rock and roll than most people.
Right.
And I've been to the two biggest rock and roll concerts I've been to are I seen Metallica.
Okay, my favorite. That's my favorite.
Right. And I seen Motley Crue.
Okay.
And Tom Morello was telling a Metallica story, and I jumped in with a story about Crue because my brain jumped to the Crue show. And so the fans was like, how the fuck he gonna confuse Tommy Lee ain't in Metallica?
Right.
So for the fans who was in the comments who was upset, I'm correcting myself.
Right.
I did see a Metallica show.
Yeah.
But my brain jumped to the Motley Crue show.
Right.
Now I say that to set up the next question. You once said that Metallica music was like a babysitter to you growing up.
Oh, wow.
So tell me how that happened.
You really are LaRae King.
I'll take it.
He really is LaRae King. Growing up, my mother and father, my father was a prominent gangbanger in Los Angeles, and he came up in the '70s era of the beginning stages of gangbanging and drug dealing. And by the time the '80s rolled around, I was born in '76, and by the time the '80s rolled around, him and my mother were steeped in the world of drugs and gang violence and survival in South Central Los Angeles. And I, a lot of times, was left to learn by that example, and as well as to fend for myself and find ways to escape that example. I'm very thankful today, and I give all grace to God and glory to God that I actually found more ways to escape than to copy or to follow in. So when I would say about 10 or 11. I'm a black man with albinism, as you can see, and a part of the one of the conditions of having albinism is that it impairs your sight, and that was a blessing for me. I think I've never even articulated it in this way until right now when I see it. The wow, glory to God. The blessing of being born with albinism and having this what some consider a handicap of impaired vision allowed me to get bussed out of South Central to go to school in Hollywood.
Oh.
And that led me to a different group of friends other than the cats that I was hanging with in the neighborhood. And those friends were Latin, those friends were white, those friends were Asian, some of them were Polynesian. The list goes on and on, right? And different cultures and all that. It exposed me to a whole nother side of life. It was Los Feliz Elementary on Vermont and Hollywood Boulevard, still there right now.
Okay.
And I was exposed, and my father, though, also was a fan of rock music. He wasn't really into Metallica. He was into Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix. Van Halen, actually, him and my mother went to school with Van Halen. They went to Manual Arts High School in Los Angeles.
That's
and my
like
mother,
real LA rock and roll.
LA rock and roll, yeah. And my mother and father met at Manual Arts. So they went to school with Eddie Van Halen. So my father had this affinity for rock music and Black Sabbath and things like that, Ozzy Osbourne. So he gave me that love and my foundation. But then on my own, as I went on into elementary school, I discovered groups like Black Flag and Metallica, Bad Brains.
Yeah.
And those things spoke to the youthful angst that was in me, you know? If you look at Led Zeppelin, which I grew to love, the groups like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Black Sabbath and all that. But if you look at this new thing I'm talking about, right, with Metallica
punk and
Black,
heavy metal.
Punk and really hard heavy metal, and like it really spoke to the youthful angst that I was feeling, you know, and I really attracted to it early on. So I was that kid that was wearing Cortez and khakis, but was playing Slayer and Black Flag and Bad Brains, and you know what I mean,
Right.
And and still, on my BS, but those are things. So as things got worse at home, with my mother and my father for their own individual reasons, because they were at this point separate and apart from each other, but still going very much so down the same road. I would spend sometimes 4 and 5 days in the house by myself.
Wow.
And I'm talking, I was 11 years old.
Wow. 10,
11 years old. And I'm going to be honest, that's where I learned a lot about myself too, good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that time, Metallica's music, and a lot of other music too, but Metallica's music, their lyrics, the song structure, the arrangement, it became my babysitter. It became the thing that I listened to all day, over and over, to keep me in a place that was outside of where I actually was, eating peanut butter and jelly and, sitting in a dark room, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really did. It gave me an escape. It gave me an out, and then like if I wanted to go outside, which I did, go outside and hang with the homies, and they was listening to, I can't even remember what was out at that time. It was so long ago. But things like NWA or Sheesh. Godly.
Uncle Jam's Army.
Uncle Jam's Army, yeah. Well, it was after that. Uncle Jam's Army was early 80s. I'm talking now like
90s.
The 90s, yeah,
Okay,
late
so
late 80s.
Okay.
Late 80s. So, Rap still was Uncle Jam's Army, and we had, NWA was really prevalent then, and King T, yeah. Sheesh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Metallica, yeah, became my babysitter, man. And funny how God works. I ended up later on in life having an opportunity through my career in music to perform with Metallica. It was one of the most emotional days of my performing career as an artist. I woke up one morning on a festival tour with Exhibit in 2003. We were doing a festival tour in Europe, and one of our festivals was with Metallica. They were headlining the stage that we were on, 4 acts after us. And I got an opportunity to sit down with each member and tell them the story of them being my babysitter.
Wow.
Man, it was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah, I got drunk with them and
Jared
actually
drunk or regular drunk?
not Jared drunk.
Not Jared drunk.
Well, you know
don't
what?
want to get Jared drunk.
Hold on, sis. I'll be perfectly honest. At that time, Jared drunk. and me and X and Lars Ulrich, who is Metallica, if you know Metallica, he's the owner of Metallica, right? Not the owner of the men, but the name and the band. He was so taken aback by me that he allowed me and X to actually stand with him on stage behind his drums the whole show.
Wow.
And I still have all the photos from that day. I have they were giving me the band, then James Hetfield, who's the lead singer, they were giving me all the guitar picks and guitar strings and drum sticks. I got all that stuff still right now to this day.
I think Lars and them get a bad rap because I think they were a little ahead of their time in terms of standing up for the artist rights.
Yeah.
People complain a lot about their stance, but I think the history has vindicated them a little bit.
It has to.
Yeah.
I mean, what they were representing was you got to think they were trailblazers in that now.
Yeah.
And then they had enough faith and foresight to know where their power was.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that I don't care what genre of artistry that you're in, that's something that we all search to get fully realized in ourselves before we're gone from here, right? I think they were early on. Like, he kind of knew his power in the industry and all based off of his fan base.
Yeah.
And this was prior to...
As Chappelle says, my true boss.
My true boss.
Yeah.
Right.
They knew who the true boss was. There you go.
You just spoke about the good things that albinism brought you, but what were some of the challenges that you had to deal with growing up? And did you experience racism in a different type of way?
Oh, yeah. Well, the challenges are rooted in ignorance. And I think ignorance that is ignorance of self first, and then the ignorance that comes from the other people in the world that are ignorant to themselves. So to answer your question in the idea of racism, I think the most racism that I experienced, ironically, came from Black people because of their understanding of what albinism is, and the truth and the divine trait that it is.
The divine trait.
Because it is a divine trait. If you really know yourself, and if you know creation, and if you know anything about science, and if you know about, anything about God, and if you know anything about the unanimous genome that we all have, right? Like, then you know that it's a divine trait.
One of the greatest things I've heard you say about it is the ability to see the world through racial ambiguity.
Yeah.
Is the greatest reward.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. That's why I can say that the ignorance that I received came from my own people more than anything. And then in early on in life, and then that it was a thing of self-discovery based off of that, because one thing that I was taught that I hold very dearly is that in order to be it, you first have to see it. So in my case, I didn't really see anybody like me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's another thing I read that you said. You said normally when I walk in a room, I'm
the only one.
I'm the only one.
Then that's something that later on in life I grew to love. I love it now. But first off, you think you take a kid now, right?
Yeah.
Everything about being a kid is about fitting in and being a part of the gang. You know what I'm saying? And when you are always the one that's the most different, you don't know how to take that until you become really self-aware and other-aware. And then as I became more other-aware and I became more self-aware and more informed, right, then it empowered me. Now I enjoy being the only one.
Right.
Now,
You
were
know?
your parents informed on albinism, or did they
No,
they didn't do any
that's what I
research
say,
when you?
it started there. You know, I think that's what
Wow.
the huge what we all as parents, we know that our biggest job as parents, I tell people all the time this, our biggest job as parents is to leave our children with no excuse.
Mm.
So when you don't know yourself and therefore know what you created, then you leave room for all excuse. If you can't inform, educate, and empower the thing that you created, then you leave a playing field of excuses to bear down on them. You know, I'm writing a book right now, and the first chapter of the book is called The Great Undoing, and The Great Undoing deals with strictly digging off the dirt that was unwarranted and unwelcomed, yet thrown on you by your parents, partners, people, places, and positions. And as children, we have that to contend with. As adolescents, we have that to contend with. And as adults, it's an ongoing and a lifelong thing. We have to dig off the dirt that was thrown on us. It wasn't our doing, but it is our responsibility to undo it.
Right. It's not your fault, but it is your
responsibility.
Yeah.
Nothing else is going to bring it to get it off of you.
That is so powerful. Our job as a parent is to leave our child with no excuses.
Yeah.
One thing, I have a daughter now, and one of the biggest things is my daughter is so much like me, and my mom did a great job raising me, but she didn't know how to raise me. So like, I'm really excited because I understand myself and I understand why she might do some of the things to like really get in there and make her the best Jasmine. I mean, Marco, possible.
Well, let me ask you the question. Let me ask you this question, and I can. It's in ways it's rhetorical, but I want you to answer it. You're doing the work though,
right?
What we consider the work on yourself to carry your shovel and dig off.
Right.
So that you don't, because that's what happens. It's generational, right? So our parents got dirt thrown on them from their parents, and then unless they did the work, right, they automatically by default throw it on us, you know. And it doesn't just happen with our parents. That's why I say it's 5 P's, you know. It starts with the parents because those are the first people that we meet.
Don't think that I didn't catch those P's.
Yeah.
I caught that. Say that again. It's
the 5 P's.
Yeah,
It's parents,
P's.
partners, people, places, and positions. So all of those things, and you know that because of the position that you're in, those things open us and open us up to more dirt and welcome more dirt in, you know, unwanted or unwarranted sometimes. Sometimes it's undeserving, but it still gets thrown and it still becomes your responsibility to take it off.
Word.
Wow. Certain interviews we do, and it's like, dang, I wish I was an interviewer so I could just get my notes, and I'm gonna have to really keep watching this one back.
Well, they taping it for us. So.
Oh yeah, it's a show. You sold crack as a kid. Can you take us through?
That was the greatest segue of all time.
Wow. Wait a minute. Is anyone else listening to this? Is anybody else hearing this? Okay.
I meant to say, you know
all
what?
right.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's the truth.
Just tell
That's
us
the
about
truth.
it. Right.
I will be honest. That's the truth.
Can you tell us about
Jasmine,
that? Was the, you know what? I tell people.
I made her listen to your records. That's
Okay,
that's
good.
the
But
truth.
I have to say this, and I know my dad will someday watch this. But I was that kid that was one of my father didn't teach me how to shit, shower, or shave, but he did teach me how to cook some crack.
Well, can you tell us about how that started and how it ended? Can you tell us about how it started and how it ended?
Oh. Yeah, if you want to know that story.
That era in your life? Yes, let us in.
If you want to know that story, sure. You know, it started one sunny morning on the streets of South Los in what was in those days called a crack house, and it no, let me be serious. Seriously.
Your era of life, not crack.
Yeah, no, I grew up. Yeah, I grew up with a father who considered crack dealing a family business, and even now I is one of my best friends, and he we still talk in such, you know, remnant and language that of a family business in those regards. It's something that early on in my life I was very proud of, as you know. That's why you guys asked me with such pride.
You know, like
with
the
such pride behind
carried
your
over
question,
from
right?
the 5 P's.
But it was something that in my youth, I must say, I was really proud of it because again, in order to be it, you have to see it, right? So that was something that I saw,
Right.
You know, and I saw it from the man whose name I hold. You know, I'm Marvin Jones III. You know, so and my dad was really good at that and very successful for a long time. And then he was very unsuccessful too.
As it goes.
Ultimately, very unsuccessful in that. So yeah, I think for a long time, like I say, my mother and father indulged in that lifestyle. I went to school a good portion of my elementary years from a crack house.
You say in your records you started at 11?
At 11 years old, yeah. At 11 years old, my father...
I remember the kid in my 6th grade class who sold crack.
Wow.
And he actually started a rap group. They used to be called the Brooklyn Zoo. They used to beef with Old Dirty and them.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the local crack dealer in my junior high school.
Wow.
I remember being in junior high school. He had the Jordans, whatever Jordans was popular at that time.
I had the white flights early.
It was the
I was
flights.
the only
It
kid
was
with
the
the white
flights.
flights. You remember the white flights?
It was the flights.
Yeah, I had the white flights early. Shout out to the King Swap Meet on Vermont. Those that know Los Angeles culture and history, you know the King Swap Meet was a real place. He was very, very, very prominent in that culture, in crack and gang culture in South Central in the 80s, my father was. And he thought it to be a survival tactic for me to know how to cook crack. I was already watching him cook crack every day and seeing him do it while Monday Night Football was playing on about 5 or 6 TVs in the living room, right? And yeah, and he one day taught me. I watched 50 Cent got a show called Raising Keenen, and I loved it so much. I can't believe I love the show that much because one because I love that era of just hip hop.
Well, you saw it.
Culture, and then I saw it at very close proximity, and even now the cars that I own, you know, when I got to that point in life to have multiple cars, they all are the cars that I saw from that era and that day and saw everybody riding. So yeah, but my point about Raising Keenen is it was so haunting to me watching it. The scene when his mother taught him to sell the dope, when he begged his mother to do that. I don't know if everybody saw that, but so that was my experience from my father. And then I was the doorman at the spot and did a lot, man. Was the counter, was the...
You lived a full life.
I lived a full life at 11. And then my father, of course, went to jail for a long time. And I was left, my mother was still in the streets. And I was left to the care of my grandmother. And that was, and because she always, even in those times, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, she always, when things would get too bad and somebody would go to jail, because everybody was always going to jail, and something was always happening. When somebody would go to jail or somebody would die or something would get shot up or the batter ram would come, because the batter ram did come.
Yeah, I've heard stories.
That was
I
very
wasn't
true.
around for that.
I know it wasn't just a
LA
song.
batter rams.
It wasn't just a song that was popular. It was a real thing. The batter ram come, the lights get turned up, they cut the electricity off, and you had a tank rolling through your living room. Very true. That for me, my grandmother was always my saving grace. I tell people, and those that know me, those are very close to me, they know that my grandmother was the only thing that I knew good. And no good. She's still alive, thank God. And the praying grandmother that is still in my life and still in my care today. Yeah, was the only thing I knew good. So when my mother went to jail and my father went to jail and I ended up with her and was able to start to push toward the escape. Yeah, more than the indulgence.
Well, God bless the praying grandmothers.
Amen to that. Yes.
Before I have a quick question because you're.
How much was the crack? It sold.
I don't want any crack.
I'm kidding.
Okay, so because your father, you said, was very well at his job. Yeah. And Snowfall talks about the L.A. crack story.
Oh,
when you talk with your father, does he see any of his stories in the show?
My father now. By the grace of God and the glory of God, my father is a devout Christian and a man of God, a family man, still very much so himself. So he's not so far removed from who he is, because he's probably been a gangbanger and a thug or whatever you want to call him by those standards, longer than he's been a saved man.
Right.
But he is totally a faithful and devoted man to the Father, and he doesn't even watch shows that bring any of that into his mind. Like he doesn't even watch Black Lightning, to be honest.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, he doesn't even, because
Black
my character,
Lightning, it's not just a superhero show.
Yeah, it's not just a superhero show, and my
That's why it was
character
so good.
is kind of, it has some truth in it. As much as it's a character that's a comic book character, I say it has some truth in it, in the sense that we all know a Tobias well.
I want to talk about your pro-blackness, because you are one of the most pro-black people I've ever met. You came into my life.
Thank you, man.
Later in life, we started working together and became friends, but we were running the same circles when I was in high school, because you was down with Black Watch.
Yes, sir.
Black Watch is an organization started by people who were around X-Clan back in the days. And shout out to X-Clan, Brother J, rest in peace to Professor X, rest in peace to Sugar Shaft.
Yeah, man.
Tell me about your X-Clan experience, and then on Thin Minutes, you were upset at them.
You're so funny. You really are LeRae King.
Hey, man, I know you.
And
I
you know me.
do
And you know me.
Yeah.
You really, really know me. You really do, brother. And for you, I'm very and forever thankful.
Oh, yeah, it's love, bro. Love is love.
Yeah, there was like I say, in my escape now with my grandmother now, my father's in jail, my mother's in the street. I am going to Dorsey High School, which is right in Baldwin Hills, aka the jungles of California. And there was a club that catered to teenagers. It was like a teenage club, that they have that. It was sometimes during the day and then sometimes at night, depending on the event. And it was called Hollywood Live. And at that time, I was playing football, junior varsity football, and Coach Swoop, shout out to Coach Swoop, it was kicking my butt. And I was also very much so into hip hop and dancing, and I was into that whole culture. And I had a baby on the way, my first girlfriend, and I was in search of something to make money. And I started to work at the Crenshaw swap meet. I was selling incense and oil.
I did that
African medallions. And because I didn't want to sell dope or weed or anything. And actually, we would go to this club on the weekend. It was like Friday and Saturday, Hollywood Live. I believe it was Friday or Saturday. And we would go to this club and everybody would perform. And this was the era of Boogie Down Productions. This was the era of Def Jeff. This was the era of X-Clan, YZ, the Poor Righteous Teachers. My point is that you had two cultures. You had an East Coast culture that was very, very conscious and self-aware and pro-Black. And then you had the gang culture in LA with NWA and Ice Cube and all that. But then there was a subculture in LA that started to emerge, with people like Divine Styler and Def
Scheme
Jeff
Team.
and Scheme Team. And
I was
all that.
going to wear my Scheme Team t-shirt that Rubik's gave me for the interview, but I left it by mistake. I just got me a Scheme Team t-shirt. I wanted one since I was in high school.
My God.
I just got one.
Come on, brother. Yeah. So this era for me was really, really influential, man. And it was coming up out of really like the dance culture and the dance scene. And it was really where I have to say, man, I really started to find myself. That's when the whole self-awareness started to happen, right? And begin like we were talking about earlier about the ignorance, right? Start to dissipate because I started to see like, whoa, wait a minute, right? And this is who I am.
Right.
And this is why I am.
Right.
And wow, and every song was "Am I Black Enough for You?" And
Am I Black Enough for You?
and Tribe Called Quest and Jungle Brothers and were like the biggest things in music, right? And they were so anyway. We would go to this club, and me and some friends at Dorsey had kind of came up with this group idea called King Since Birth. It was like KSB, and we had made like this demo tape, and we were pushing it around the neighborhood, and you know how that was back then. You push your demo tape, and you get.
You think you're about to get on? You in high school?
About to get on. Gee, for real. Yeah. And one day, and X-Clan was the biggest thing at the time because they had incorporated West Coast music and sound.
They was
with
rhyming
the East
over
Coast,
the funk.
And they were East Coast, and yet they had a super powerful message that was...
Like EPMD.
And it was funny because all the gangsters with the El Caminos and the Monte Carlos was playing X Clan.
Like when I seen Snoop versus DMX and Battle Cat threw on X Clan and Snoop Dogg started dancing, I was like, people were surprised. I'm like, I don't know if y'all know how natural that is.
That is they was big in the West Coast because of the sound, you know, and other elements too that were just, you know, right there. And it's just so funny, bro, because we had this tape, and we always carried like a little knapsack. You know, everybody had a knapsack. Everybody was a dancer, and you had to carry everything in your little African knapsack.
Your bag said it's a black thing, you wouldn't understand?
Yeah, exactly. So we, after the show, were leaving the venue, and this was Hollywood Boulevard. This was, actually, Hollywood Live takes place where they filmed Jimmy Kimmel right now.
Right.
That studio was Hollywood Live, was a club, that club portion.
Wow.
And and we ran into these brothers, bro. We ran into X Clan, bro. And, you know, we're 15, 16 years old, you know, and we just handed them our cassette tape. You know, and the cassette tape had our number on it, blah, 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 blah. And the next thing we know, about a week later or something, we get a phone call from those guys. And they liked the tape, and they wanted to meet with us. And, you know, long story short, we ended up signing. I signed my first production deal with them because of that. And they flew us to New York, and they were working on what eventually became Professor X's new album. Right. Before they split up. This was after the 80 AM album, right, and all the Exodus album. And and they flew me and my brother, Michael Mercadero, man. I know you see this and laugh. My man, Mike Mercadero, I haven't talked to him in years, flew us to New York. And our first time ever going to New York. We stayed in Brooklyn on Ashland and Fulton. Yep.
And see, X Clan was big in Brooklyn Tech, which was on Ashland and Fulton, which I was going to high school at the time.
Yeah, on Ashland and Fulton. We stayed. I lived on Ashland and Fulton almost 3 months. And I was 16 years old. And I mean, Kweli, you can only imagine, and anybody watching this, a kid from South Central LA whose mother and father, you know, sold and did crack, and a praying grandmother had enough faith to let me go on this pilgrimage, I consider it, right? With this group that she didn't know nothing about or anything about, but she knew that it was my dream and it was something that I wanted to do. And she let me go to New York and live there, man. And it was kind of like over the summer. And that was one of the things, too, because it was kind of right in the end of school and over the summer. And I was already, you know, living my manly thing because I had a baby on the way, you know. So it was that, too, you know, where it was like, I got to do this almost, you know. And, went and made music and made a little money, very little money. And I give them the credit for starting my relationship with marijuana, you know, because I had never had a relationship with marijuana like that before. And just showing me the world, because then we went on tour. I toured with them too, even after that. We traveled a lot. I have relationships now. It's funny, even somebody like E40, that's my uncle E40. But I met E40 back then.
Back then, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we had like a run-in like back then, E40, and me and E40 have a relationship right now because I was a 16-year-old kid and he was in the clique, and it was before the Jive deal and all of that. You know, it's so funny, man, how life works, man. And so many relationships that I have to this day from that era, you know.
Word up.
You were an industry promo guy who worked at a lot of labels. Do you feel like that helped with your musical career?
Oh, yeah. It was my college. I tell people that all the time. I tell people all the time, if there's something that you want to do, you first must get around it. If you want to know about rap, if that's your thing, you must get around it, you know, or hip hop. Let me say hip hop, but not rap, right? Hip hop. Then you must kind of encompass your life around it, indulge yourself completely in it, submerge yourself in it. You know, that was what I did in the club scene and the dance scene and all these scenes, you know, taking that trip with X Clan to New York. It was me, unbeknownst to me at the time, it was me just submerging myself in what I wanted and what I wanted to do.
Yeah, getting those 10,000 hours,
getting those
10,000 Gladwellian hours in.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout out to Malcolm Gladwell, right? So really doing that. And then eventually, when now I have a baby and I got to make money, right? And I want to be an artist and I want to put out music and I want to instinctively, I don't know, it has to only be the providence of God, told me, okay, you dropped out of high school early. because you had a child, you had to start working, you're not in college, you want to do music. So you have to work in this industry and let that serve as your education and your college.
Yeah. Which labels did you work at?
I worked at Def Jam for 5 years. I went from being a unpaid street promoter to the West Coast Regional Rep promotions manager for Mix Show Radio. And that was in a almost 6 year time. That was in the era of Lear Cohen, Russell Simmons, and Kevin Lyles. Kevin Lyles, I get choked up every time I say his name because he's actually in the first chapter of my book I write about him. He was the first person that believed in me as a businessman, meaning that he hired me and paid me a lot of money. He allowed me to manage a tour. Made me a tour manager. He made me a promotions manager.
Wow.
And when I put out my first record, so you're gonna make me cry. When I put out my first record, he put my first record in BDS.
Wow.
The Rules. He invited me to his penthouse in West Hollywood at the time. And he said, "Oh, so I hear you're making records." You know?
Yeah.
And he said, "You're not out there promoting your record while you're supposed to be promoting my record."
That sound like Kevin Lyles.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Look at him now, right?
What a good guy. He gave High Tech a deal. And he's always been, I've never done business with him, but he's always been super supportive in ways that he can be.
In my opinion, if you look at him now, just a sidebar for Kevin Lyles, and I hope he sees this. If you look at him now, he is the culture. He is the Russell Simmons of this era for these kids, man. He is that.
You're right. You're right.
He is that.
You're right.
He's responsible for the biggest names. I mean, him and Coach K, of course. But I mean, you see what I'm saying as far as what 300 has done.
Yeah.
Come on. But anyway, so yeah, and he said, you're not out there promoting my records. I mean, promoting your record while you're supposed to be promoting my record. And I said, no, sir, because at the time, what happened because my first record was produced and executive produced by at the time like the biggest record pool and mix show DJ here in the market, DJ Truly Odd. That I got a lot of love on my first record from Mix Show, so it was getting played a lot.
Right.
You know, and which garnered me who I am, I believe, today. It's like set the foundation for all that stuff you rattled off in the beginning about me, right? So, because that was the era of Big Boy and the Baker Boys and, real L.A.
Let's talk about Truly Odd for a second.
Okay.
And not just Truly Odd, but L.A. Mix Show Radio and that whole scene. One of the biggest moments of your career, I think, up to that point was performing Love Allah with Chase Infinite on Friday Night Flavors, right? On Power 106.
Yeah.
First of all, let's talk about, before we get into that, Chase Infinite.
Yeah.
Such a stellar human being. DJ Khalil.
Yeah. Those are like they're my brothers and they are my big brothers. But they're also that no one's believed in me more.
Right.
No one, I mean, Truly Odd, of course.
Yeah.
I consider him like my father in the rap game, right? Because he born the character that Krondon.
Right.
God used him.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, and my brother DeFari sitting over there knows because he was
Shout
there.
Shout out to DeFari, definitely.
In that era, he knows, he was with me in that. He knew there was no Krondon before, it wasn't that. And that house on Wilton, 251 Wilton,
right.
It born that character.
Shout out to definitely Planet Asia. I got to get him in.
Oh
because
my God.
There's so much work.
I love the interview you guys did, though. I watched it.
When he said Supreme Alchemy?
Yeah.
I got a song called Supreme Alchemy based on what Asia taught me that day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my lyrical
twin.
Hero.
Yeah, like you guys are twins almost. Like
Asia, Planet Asia is the one guy that I'm like, fuck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's the one guy, when I hear him rhyme,
man.
Fuck.
Yeah,
I gotta step my shit up.
Yeah, man.
That's the one guy.
Always.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad he's my friend.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah,
what
man.
if Planet Asia was your enemy?
Yeah.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah. Glad he's my friend.
Shout out to Feel the Agony.
My brother.
Yeah. What can I say about Jason Nesbitt Smith?
Well, I tell people all the time.
Spliff with E Swift while we listen to the licks.
He has the I call him in my life one of the greatest hearts that I've ever experienced. Honestly, he for whatever that how deep me and Phil go.
Yeah.
And the world knows that. It's public information. But it's truly he just has the greatest heart, man.
Yeah,
you know,
he does.
that's the only way to sum him up, man.
He does.
Whatever you know of him or don't know of him, just know that, you know, you're dealing with a pure heart
He
right
does.
there, man.
And of course, the infatigable Mitchie Slick.
Wait, I love your description of him.
Infatigable.
Because that's the best way. No, I couldn't have said it better. Wait a minute. The candle that just never burn out.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I marvel at Slick's tenacity, man. You know, yeah, man. I love that how you put it with him, because he's one who is purely who he is, and you can't. You have to, if you know him, like he is the purest heart, and I would think the Slick has the most depth of layer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If you really, you have to really, you're going to spend all your life peeling those layers back.
Yeah.
You're never going to understand it completely, you know? And
That's
I think
right.
that's the beauty of Mitchie Slick, because he's as much as you might see him on the surface and think you've figured him out or you know what it is, he is the most unpredictable the best way.
That's right.
In the best way.
Now, I got to know Strong Arm Steady through Exhibit.
Yeah.
And Strong Arm Steady was essentially becoming the Dipset of the West Coast.
I take that. Thank you.
Y'all were putting out CDs, DVDs. You were flooding the market with mixtapes.
Yeah.
Myself and Corey Smith at the time, we were just trying to start Blacksmith Music. We were so impressed with what was going on with Strong Arm Steady.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think I called Exhibit. You know, when I touched it, he was my touchdown. I would check in with Exhibit.
Always.
And Exhibit plugged me in with Feel the Agony, who then plugged me in with Steady Gang on the whole.
Yeah.
And in that era, you guys were responsible for some of the most dense and diverse street rap coming out of the West Coast. Steady Aromatic, the collection, the Debo series, Gangs of LA, Old Dog series, Green Up, Clack Music, the Blacksmith edition.
Of course.
Dilated Steady with Dilated People.
Oh my gosh, was one of my favorite.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Gang Mentality with Clinton Sparks, which
very
was presented
good one
by me. I'm happy.
Very good one.
Yeah.
The DJ Envy joint. Don't forget
Envy.
that joint.
Yep.
Which was another, like, we were doing things that, if you look at it, were thanks to you and Corey's belief, and of course Exhibit's belief. You know, but please, if you're going to ask a question, I'm sorry.
Please continue. I was just going to talk about how we were early on Afion. Because I
Oh
went back
my
and listened to
God.
Gang Mentality recently, and he was wilding on that. This is
Were we
Afion
early on
covers.
Afion, and my biggest regret, let me tell you, because me and Phil talk about this all the time. You know what my biggest regret was?
What?
Not being on Black History, man.
We shot the video for Black History,
And I didn't want to be on
Park.
it. You remember I didn't want to be on it?
I remember.
I didn't want to be on it, but
I'm not on it either.
that was my biggest freaking regret, dude.
Yeah, that's a good record.
It's such a good record, man.
Yeah.
And the video was good, and it was so ahead of its time when I look back on, like, that's like how you were talking about Arms and Hammers just earlier. I look back at that video and go, man, what was I thinking, man? Like, I should have been
You
on
and
that.
we were, so I was moving into like trying to play the role of executive.
Yeah.
And you still was an A&R
Yeah.
album role. Like you were like, we have to be strategic with how we place these hooks and these verses, how we roll out these projects. And I think it was you wanted to let everyone else shine.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I'm on enough
I
of
was
this
really
project.
big on that. Like, that's why I'm not on All the Brothers, which I put it together, picked the beat, everything, and I regret it, bro. I'm like, oh
I
my
listened to
God, I'm not on All the
today,
Brothers.
and
Like, give me a break.
I was waiting for your verse and I forgot you wasn't on
I'm not on that. Like, how did I not get on All the Brothers?
Right.
I'm talking on it.
Right.
But I don't rap on it. I'm talking on it.
In the hood.
Yeah, and then the whole intro and all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Karis One, who's on
Shout out
All
to
the
Karis
Brothers.
One, who's on that. Thank
That's
you
a great
very
record.
much. So
Thank you for
Talib
putting me
Kweli.
on that record.
Thank you.
Chris was hanging out at my crib around that time.
My God, man. You know, I want to say this too while we're on that subject of that era. And we know that, you know, it was very public, like what was going on with our group and with Blacksmith and with Exhibit at that time. And I love and honor Exhibit for everything he's done for me individually, for Krondon, for Marvin Jones III, and ultimately for my group, Strong Arm Steady. And you know, at that time, you and Corey Smith, you guys came in with such a belief from the outside, because I consider Exhibit to be very much so on the inside. He was a part of the group. He has it tatted on his hand.
Yeah.
Very, very much so. He is Strong Arm Steady. So you guys and you in particular early on, I think you saw it and saw the vision early, and you supported it and lended your voice to it, and more than your voice, your stage to it, and then that relationship developed into Corey having the equal amount of infinity for it, and he put his name and you guys together put y'all's name at the time when you were at peak time in your career and doing like, incredible things, separate and apart from Black Star, separate and apart from Reflection Eternal. You were doing incredible things and still are, don't get me wrong, still are. But at that time, you opened up your float on the parade of hip hop to us and welcomed us on. And I just got to let you know, brother, that I am eternally grateful for that.
Oh man.
And what you were able to do, it reminds me of a lot of biblical stories that I read and study now, because you took what some might say and see as what you had, which, you know what I mean, was really in these days and times enough for maybe just one, and you spread it amongst so many, and we were a part of that so many. And there was times in my life at that time that I have to admittedly say that I wasn't clear on how you were being used by God at that time in my life, in our life, in my group's life. And I did not have the complete self-awareness and the patience to value it the way that I should have. And I want you to know that I recognize that. And I forever, brother, love you for the belief, love you for the commitment, love you for the follow-through. And I love you for ultimately putting up with my bullshit.
You're gonna make me cry.
Here's your clap, Talib.
through the whole time, because there was times when I admittedly was on some bullshit. And that comes with hindsight. See, had I had the foresight and the insight, I would have never made it to the hindsight.
Man, well, let me just add on, since we building.
Yes, sir.
That was a very difficult time for me.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Because as much, and I've received that, and thank you, and I honor you for saying that to me. I felt like I didn't deliver what I could have delivered.
Right.
Because I didn't understand the game. I understand it a lot more now. But there was a lot of resistance against me personally for what my vision was at the time.
Yeah.
We went into the blacksmith situation. Me and Corey had a very public falling out.
Yeah, yeah.
Around shortly after that time.
I know, yeah.
And part of it was because I didn't understand who Corey was. I didn't understand who I was. I didn't understand who Corey was. We were all growing and learning.
We were all growing and learning.
And
we're all really young, by the way.
Yeah.
Real young.
Yeah. And so what was happening was blacksmith music, that was my thing.
Yeah.
That wasn't Corey's thing.
Right.
Corey's thing was blacksmith management.
Yeah.
And he was a great manager. He was my manager for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have did it without him.
Right.
But I was challenging him in ways that he wasn't ready for.
Yeah.
With blacksmith music.
Yeah.
And him trying to support my vision, he just didn't know how to support it. He knew how to be a manager.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to operate as label exec.
Yeah.
He's operating as manager, and we clash heads. And the label, Tom Wiley and Warner Brothers, they weren't respecting who I was because Corey didn't put me in a position to be respected. So I remember, first talking about Exhibit, I met Exhibit at Blue Davis' crib from Lyricist Lounge.
Yeah, yeah.
When Lyricist Lounge first got started.
Come on, man.
He would come out to New York and stay with Blue and Anthony and Danny Castro and them.
Come on, man. And the boys right
And
there.
Exhibit would always call me when he got to New York.
Yeah.
I remember Exhibit came to New York to do the Tunnel with Snoop and Dre when Bitch Please was out. And he called me. And I was on stage at the Tunnel. That's one of my greatest memories.
Right.
So whenever I would call Exhibit, he'd pull up to the airport with a truck full of guns.
Yeah.
And be like, what you need?
Yeah.
what we going to, like, he was very, very passionate dude.
Very passionate.
But with the Warner Brothers situation, it was crazy because I went to Tom Wally's house and I was like, why am I not getting any support for Strong Arm Steady?
Yeah.
And he was like, we've given you all the money. And that's how me and Corey Smith had a falling out, because he had his own vision for how to budget the Blacksmith music stuff that I just wasn't a part of.
Yeah, yeah.
And I found out late.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because I'm like, yo, I promised these guys that I'm going to get the album out.
Yeah.
And there was no more money.
Yeah.
So then I started spending my own money.
Yeah.
And that's when we started doing the On Point videos and the Can't Let Go videos and all that stuff. And I remember we flew out to Vegas to do the record.
Come on, the stripper thing.
Night after night.
Oh my God.
What's up with Kobe?
I haven't talked to Kobe in so long, man.
Yeah, he was supposed to be a star.
Yeah, he is a star in my opinion. Man, I haven't talked to Kobe in so long, you know. And to your credit, brother, I remember those days so well, and that's why I have to say that, because I know what you're saying now. You know, I do know that now. Being fully, well, I'm not gonna say that. What am I saying? I am nowhere near fully mature, but having more maturation and self-awareness now, and really, really, man, having so much time to deliberate as well as reconcile, and knowing that it's always me, brother. It's never, you know, and it's up to each individual to take that stance for their own in their own time.
Yeah.
But it's always me. And I know there's certain particular things that my better angels would do different.
Right.
And I'm talking about in just in terms of relation and appreciation for you and Corey and X too. And X too, he's very much so included in that.
That's right.
You know, I've told him all of this already.
That's right.
Yeah, man, because at that time you got to think. Here it is, man. I got, you know, two brothers from New York City that don't know my story in completion and totality, but are helping me tell and write my story. Right. You know, and at this point in my life, and want to take it further than what I imagined and dreamed it to be. And even whatever your reservations are, brother, let me tell you right now, brother, you did it. You did what you were supposed to do, and you did what God intended to be done.
Right.
I mean, look where I'm sitting now.
That's right.
And it all worked for the good.
This is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And to put a bow on this conversation, that album is my favorite thing that we've done.
It's a lot of people. Yeah, it's a lot of people. Yeah.
Arms and
Hammers. Thank you for that.
For real. Like, I mean, Black Tovin,
wow,
DJ Khalil, Jelly Roll, Knots, Terrence Martin on two. We were early on Terrence Martin.
My God.
Corrupts on his
1500 and nothing.
Madlib. Yeah, Mars. I mean, I can't, like, if anyone has not listened to Arms and Hammers who's watching this show, make sure you go get that album. Very proud of being involved in that album.
Thank you, man.
It's the epitome of what West Coast hip hop could be, if I do say so myself.
Thank you, man.
You know, at West Coast hip hop, I say that knowing that West Coast hip hop is incredible. It's one of the greatest things we've ever heard.
Yeah.
Hip hop is not what the West Coast has given to hip hop cannot be taken away.
Right.
With Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Mitchie got that song Dr. Cube.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Where it talks about how they were gatekeepers at one time.
Yeah.
What they have given to and Snoop and everybody who came before y'all stand on their shoulders, and then the people who came after y'all. You know, the Kendricks and everybody, Casey Veggies and everybody, Dom Kennedy, and all the people came after y'all.
Yeah.
It's such an important record, man. And I just, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for letting me be involved in
brother, you know, that was 5 years of our lives. You included our lives.
Yeah.
That was 5 years of our lives. I mean, when I think about the time, effort, and energy that went into Arms and Hammers, I think that's what makes me say what I say, brother, because I know that it took to do an album like Arms and Hammers. They don't make records like that anymore. They don't mix a song 10,000 times.
Yeah, man.
You know, and I'm just being honest, man. They don't make records like that anymore. You don't have records that, I mean, and you have records that have all the bells and whistles now, but it's different bells and whistles now. You know, back then the bells, you know, had to have a long resume attached to them.
Yeah.
And they had to have a lot of record sales attached to them. And it had to have a lot of validity in the streets, you know? I think that what we were able to do with Arms and Hammers, is only a testament, one, to the tenacity of Strong Arm Steady, and those that believed in it. Exhibit included, you, Corey, David Banner.
Shout out to Banner who did the last track. Shout out to Jean Grey.
Jean Grey.
Because it's the same thing with Jean Grey and her projects on Blacksmith.
Yeah,
same
man.
Thing.
Like everybody involved in Arms and Hammers, Jelly Roll, Black Toe. I mean, these guys at that time, and still, in my opinion, were some of the most innovative, soundsmith.
Right.
I mean, look who Terrace Martin is now.
That's right.
And he was that then.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it Mad Lib, and that was coming, right off of Stoney Jackson, which, set the blueprint now for everything, that's happening with Mad Lib.
That's a great album as well. For true Mad Lib fans, that's a fan favorite.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
man.
done a lot of albums with a lot of rappers, and none of them are lacking. All of them are great.
All of them are great.
But Stoney Jackson,
yeah,
that's a great
It's just
record.
the time of it, because our timing, I think even that was something that you were impressed with. So yeah, man, Arms and Hammers was such a time because every mixtape, we put out, I don't know what we said, about 60-something mixtapes prior to that. And that was the culmination because it was everything we were talking about we were going to do. It was like one of them things we say, like, when we grow up, we're going to do this.
Right.
And we grew up.
I went back and
we
listened to
did
those mixtapes, and when you listen to them, the blueprint is being shouted out.
The
We're
whole
doing
time.
this, look out for this, look out for that, and we brought it to fruition.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so first of all, I can't wait till your book comes out because I'm definitely gonna.
Oh,
We have to have you
thank
back after
Thank you.
the book
I would
comes
love
out
to come
too.
back when the book comes out.
I'm the producer of the show now too.
Okay, good. Good.
You do some ghostwriting, and you've been linked to Exhibit, Uncle Snoop. We had Sky Zoo on here, and he told us how everything worked out, but he wouldn't tell us who he actually wrote for. So can you tell us
Is
some
this
of
what you're doing?
Wow.
this is what I'm doing.
Okay.
So can you tell us some of the famous verses you've written? And also, if I wanted to be a ghostwriter, where would I go? Is there like an Indeed for ghostwriting? Like, how do you get the job?
Ooh. Well, any type of creative IP is done relationally. If you know that. Mm-hmm. Even all the things that we're doing here, you guys are doing here, there's a relationship I see that's been built and will be built for the next thing you do. And for me as a ghostwriter, I never woke up in the morning as an artist and said, okay, I'm going to write for somebody else. That's not what I ever did. Mm-hmm. And I never, it's just funny too, because you said those names and people, I'm synonymous with those names, not because I said that.
Right.
They said that.
That's right.
Like, I never said it. Snoop said that. Mm-hmm. And if you go on the record, like, I begged Snoop on GGN in the interview. If you watch that interview, which I'm somewhat embarrassed by, because you can see me like get so small in the chair like this, and I'm like, oh no, And Snoop really brought, and shout out to Dog, man, who is definitely, I think, one of the greatest artists ever.
Oh.
Snoop is up there with some of the greatest artists that ever existed.
Not even artist now, entertainer. He's like on everything.
Yeah,
I say this, he might be the most important rap artist.
He is the most important for sure. And I don't even look at him as just rap anymore. I think he's genreless. But he's something like Michael Jackson, right? It's crazy, like this guy, man. You know what I mean? As far as he's almost immortal now. You know what I mean? He's like, whoa, okay. He thought it right, because at the time I was doing a lot of writing on the West Coast, a lot, and for a lot of people, and Dog included. And at that time, I ended up writing for a time when Dog was kind of making his turning a corner back to where he is now, and so he gave me that. He made me talk about the writing. He made me mention, certain names. Well, he mentioned the names. I just affirmed the names, and him and Phil together ganged up on me. And so I've been able to write for a lot of people, and they're all my friends. I hold it as a high honor. I think that when I was younger, and Kweli is witness to this, because he really knows me, y'all. He knows every side of me, y'all. So that's why he probably likes this side of me, because he knows the other side of me, right? But I always carried it with reverence, but sometimes I carried it with arrogance, and because again, it was something that in my walk with God, I did not realize that you have no control over the things that you're called to do.
Mm-hmm.
You must follow the steps that is ordered to you, and the Bible says the steps of a good man are ordered in the Lord, right? So when I was ordered these things, I thought it was me doing. I thought it was because I was so good and so great. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I'm glad I don't think that now.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really am honored to work with the people that I've worked with who trusted me to collaborate on the things that they were doing and that they were standing on. And the list goes on and on as far as, who and what. And favorite verses, I don't necessarily have a favorite verse. I will say that working with Exhibit was my best time.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that because I think at the time he was the most trusting of me.
Mm.
He really, really, really was. And he empowered me through that channel. And I think that it opened it up, and he wasn't the first to actually, call me in to ghostwrite either. He just was the one that really empowered me with it, again, business is business, so I won't mention that, but he empowered me 100% with the ability to kind of helm an album and know what making a big record, like Arms and Hammers happened because Weapons of Mass Destruction happened.
Right.
That's the only reason why it happened.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Watching that process. Yeah.
Doing that, it was like, okay, and like from A to Z, it's like I'm producing films now. I'm producing a film now. And I'm doing this only because of what I was able to see for 5 years on Black Lightning.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
what I was able to gather and garner from it and take away.
Right.
So the same, from working with Exhibit, I was able to go on to write for Snoop and write for everybody else. It was because I laid that foundation with him.
Now, okay, so I'm a comedian, and I've had some jokes that have been told by some people, where
Did you get paid?
No, it wasn't like that. It was
Okay.
like, that's not how it kind of works all the time. But they didn't
Right.
steal the joke. I just kind of like said something, and they're like, "Oh, I like that. I'm going to do it."
Okay. No, that happens. That happens.
Exactly.
That
So
happens
when
with lines, rap lines all the time. That
Right.
happens. Like, yeah, that happens.
And so I know I'm just like, "Ooh, that's mine. I did that." So
Right.
do you ever have you written for someone you're like, "Damn, I wish I would have kept that for myself," or is it always like, "Damn, I did that"?
I think, again, I'll say Exhibit because, and I've never felt like I wish I would have kept that for myself. Because the thing that happened with Exhibit is I was giving him songs that were already my songs that were just done already.
Okay.
So there's and some of the records were for Arms and Hammers early on. Like, because we were thinking
A lot of those records were going to different camps.
With different camps. A lot of the Arms and Hammers, that's what took Arms and Hammers so long too, because, or either.
The Pete Rock.
Oh,
Kanye,
let's not
Jay-Z
mention that.
record.
Let's not do that.
That's a good record.
Let's not mention
I like
that
y'all
record.
version a lot.
To our merit, we were pulling off some really great
Yeah, man.
things at that time. I mean, Pete Rock record, that record, come on, man. We sat up
Add
with
a
Pete Rock
little
a
sugar.
week.
Yeah.
A week eating Roscoe's every day, 3 times a day to get that one record. And then that record ended up
I
being
remember
what it was.
I asked Pete about it one day. He was like, I had to get the bag.
And we told him when he called us. I mean, Pete's one of our great friends. You
Yeah,
know
shout
that
out
he
to
is
Pete
one of our
Rock.
great friends,
Yes, we
biggest
had him
fans,
here.
everything. Shout to Pete Rock.
They took him off Instagram last week.
Why?
Did they?
Because he be wilding on Instagram. The same that, they took me off Twitter. I can't.
Oh, I love his Instagram.
I haven't seen.
I love Pete Rock's Instagram.
Yeah, Pete Rock was going hard.
Yeah, he goes hard. But to his credit, Pete Rock, who's one of the greatest hip hop producers of all time, he called us, man, and told us the whole thing. And before and felt horrible, and still to this day, he's like, whatever you guys want to do, to this day. We haven't ever called in the favor, but whatever you want to do. So we were doing incredible things at that time, musically, because Kweli would tell you, my thing was, Strong Arm Steady's thing was, we were like a boot camp for rap music. If you came to the West Coast, you had to come through us.
You came to that crib.
You came to that crib. You had to come to
Is
that
it
crib.
true that, I might have this wrong, did that used to be Tyra Banks' crib?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Because Phil says that in that song, Summertime.
Yeah.
Says Tyra Banks came through because it was an old crib where
Yeah,
she
she
grew up.
lived downstairs. Yeah, she actually filmed a either makeover, or next top model, one of her
LA
little
Class.
specials.
America's Next Top Model?
Something like that. She came back to her home. Yeah, she came through there while we were there. Yeah. So yeah, she used to live there.
Shout out to Steady Daycare.
Steady.
What's the last time you watched that?
That was
Hot
amazing.
baby, see?
That was amazing. Amazing.
I'm about to put that on my Instagram as a Steady Daycare.
That is hilarious.
In 2013, Everything's Nothing dropped. The first track is The Adventures of Dust Boy and the Inner Space Submarine.
Yeah.
I love Inner Space, bro. Who else is rapping about inner space with Dennis Quaid?
Yeah, man.
Who else is rapping about this?
Yeah, man.
Casey Veggie's name comes up on the show all the time.
Yeah,
He's
man.
on KFC.
Yeah, man.
Why does his name keep coming up? Because I promised Dom Kennedy I would research Casey Veggie's,
Yeah.
and I haven't done it yet. I think we need to have him on here.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
White Boys is an incredible project.
Thank you, man.
Shafiq Hussein,
Thank you, man.
Sarah,
It's
creative
one of my
partners.
dream projects, too.
It's such a great guy. You go back with him. You worked with him early.
Early, yeah.
Do you remember the Young Black Teenagers?
I do.
We're gonna have Kid up here tomorrow. And remember House Party 2?
Yeah.
Cameron played a dude named Jamal.
Yeah.
I was upset about this.
No. It's funny you say that. Me and Shafiq, while we were making White Boys, we were pulling all this. We were grabbing this, so that, yeah, it's
Right.
like, we were right in line, like with.
So tell me about the concept of that.
Well, the concept of the White Boys album, and it was the album was called White Boys Neighborhood Wonderful, and because our idea was we were taking the concept of race, and because if you know the origins of where we get white and black was a class thing in America, right? It's classes, and then if you know the origins of white and black in the spiritual realm and theology, one represents the darkness of man and the spirit, and one represents the purity of spirit and man. And I think that it's a falsehood to think that the purity of man is privy to one sector of people. And I think that time has proven and history has proven that is completely false.
Right.
So to debunk that idea, what we wanted to do is get true to what white really means, and white means purity, and purity means God.
Right.
And you don't necessarily, if you look at high priests of all religions, right? When they come in the form of purity, they usually are wearing some kind of white robe or something. When a woman gets married, right, and she's supposed to be pure, she wears white, right? Even if she's not, that happens. And we wanted to do a record that was focused on the idea of educating the hood nigga, for lack of a better word, on what the truth of what white really means. That it is not a people. It's not a race. It's not a culture. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
And it ultimately, for us as black people, it is ours.
Right.
We represent what the purity of God is in more ways than one.
And God understands niggas.
And God understands niggas.
That's right.
Man. So
shout out to Anderson .Paak and Thundercat.
who were very instrumental on that album.
That's right. And Jametta Rose, who I'm not
Oh, my
familiar
God.
with, but who
Oh, my
sounded
God.
great on that song.
She's on the whole album. She does vocals on quite a few of them.
Okay.
See, and that's another thing. Like when we were doing Arms and Hammers and Stoney Jackson, Phil will tell you, like, I was always pushing to work with Sarah. Always pushing. If you think we remember, we had that little issue with Sarah early on about that record that was on our DVD. I don't know if you remember that, but that was before Blacksmith days. But we actually did work with Sarah as a group, but then it was just a discrepancy because at the time, the guy who was doing our DVD ended up using the record unbeknownst to us. And it was already out there and it was too late for us to take it off. It was this big fiasco. But anyway, I was really, really, really big on Sarah. I kind of like came up with Taz in LA and knew Shafiq and knew Omaz. And to me, I think that they were, I still think that they are so far ahead of their time that time still hasn't caught up with them yet.
They're not done. They got so much work to
and they're not done. And yeah, so And then if you know music, which I really study music, I love music. I was very aware of what Omos was doing individually, what Taz was doing individually, and what Shafiq was doing individually. And in 2009, on Arms and Hammers tour, Strong Arm Steady, on our Arms and Hammers album, we toured with Hieroglyphics. Remember we did that? That was like the first tour we went on, right? We went on a couple, but that was the first one with Hyro. We toured the whole country. And Shafiq had just put out an album called In Africa. It was his first solo album.
The Master Teacher.
Oh my God.
Brother Love.
Oh my God. That album just blew me away.
Yeah.
You know, and this was post-Sarah and all of that. It blew me away. And I would tell Phil every day and Mitchie Slick, like, yo, we gotta work with this guy. Like, this is the next sound. This is it, you know. It was funny because while we were doing that, right. That was after the Madlib record. So after the Madlib record, I was in my mind, I was like, okay, well, this is where we need to go next. Like, this is, you know, let's go here. You know, we did the Arms and Hammers, and now let's go here. And it never happened. We ended up, you know, going to New York a bunch of times with you, working with Static Selector every time we was in New York doing the show, and then we ended up doing that record with him, you know, which was a great album.
Good album, yeah.
Was wonderful. So when I start doing Everything's Nothing, I pulled Shafiq in, really on the A&R side. Really just come listen and see what I'm doing. I want you to see what I'm doing because I'm going somewhere different than where I was at with the group.
Dust Boy in the Inner Space.
Yeah, in Inner Space, exactly. So I'm going somewhere different.
Right.
Come check this out. He heard a record called I'm Moving that Khalil produced and went crazy. He said, I want to be on that.
Record.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite records too. And he ended up coming and adding vocals to that, doing some production on that, adding some things to that. And I said, well, after I do this, you know, and I end up touring, and me and Dom went around the world and all of that, me and Dom Kennedy, on Everything's Nothing. And because I was on his Get Home Safely album at that time,
and
too.
you introduced me to Dom at a Black Star concert in London. That's how I met him.
Yeah, that was on that tour. That was on that tour, exactly. Because I love Dom. I was there like his first LA show. And I was by myself. It was like one of them things where I wanted to get away from everything, from Hudson. I wanted to get away from Hudson, so I ended up going to this show downtown LA one afternoon, and there was this kid performing named Dom Kennedy, and he came up to me afterwards. I say kid now, he's a grown man now, but at that time he was a kid to me. And he came to me, said, man, I love what y'all doing, and blah, 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 blah. And I'll never forget because, you know, when we was heavy and what we was doing, what struck me about Dom is he had on shorts, black socks, and black Vans.
LA shit.
And at that time, that wasn't what we was doing.
Right.
You know, it was LA if you knew LA.
Yeah, yeah.
But it wasn't what, you know, West Coast hip hop was looking like at the time. You know, and he had the LA hat on, just how he looks now. Right. But then, you know what I mean? And he performed, man, and it was only maybe about 50 people there on the roof of the Standard Hotel.
Oh.
Never forget. And from there I just fell in love with the guy. I was like, I like this guy. I like what his perspective is, what he's talking about. He's from South Central, obviously, but he's not on that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So anyway, shout out to Dom. That's my brother. So on Everything's Nothing, yeah, we toured the world, and after that, I knew that I wanted to do something that I hadn't done before. I wanted to, like you started in the beginning, I wanted to kind of get back to my pro-Black roots. Yeah. And because I think, you know, if you look at Strong Arm Steady, and even though we had those elements in there, we were very militant, you know. You
even made an excuse on the Strong Arm Steady at the end of Clack or Get Clacked On. You're like, yeah, we like to preach that, you know, red and blue make green, black and brown make green, but every once in a while, you was trying to get there on that record. Right. Like, okay, we got this record. We talking about this shoot 'em up, bang, bang record. Right. But just let you know, we still positive.
Yeah, we still positive.
But just let you know, we have to have this record.
We have this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the thing. So, I wanted to get back to that. And why, I mean, Shafiq, you know, just if you know Shafiq, you know, if you know the man, not the producer, then you know that, I mean, that guy's like he's the master teacher, man. He's a master teacher, man. And for real, because he's a teacher first. And he's a minister. You know, he is that, man. He especially in the sect of the Noble Drew Ali and the Moral Science Temple of America, the teachings of Noble Drew Ali and the Moral Science Temple of America, he is a pillar in that community.
I don't want to get too much into this because I feel like you're giving us this spirituality through the conversation and things you're saying.
Yeah.
But I love your intersectionality between spiritual practices because you come in the game doing Love Allah and rolling with a bunch of God body cats.
Yeah.
And then you would give me spiritual literature throughout our relationship.
All the time.
And as you develop your journey into what you practice, and then you're still able to work with Shafiq and work with all these people and bring it together.
Yeah.
Even though not everybody practices it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you know the Bible, and if you know the Word, if you know the Quran, if you know the Torah, right? If you know the things that are of what they call the Brahmic faiths, then you know that they are all one.
That's right.
If you know about Hinduism and Krishna, which stems from Christ, right?
That's right.
And the Christine law, then you know the unanimous lineage of faith and understanding.
That's
if you read the book of Buddha, right, it mentions the Father.
That's right.
In that, you know what I'm saying? Because the Father traveled there. If you study things like the Aquarian Gospel, I don't want to get too deep on the Aquarian Gospel. Levi, come on now.
The 13 crucified saviors.
Yeah, if you want to get into
16 crucified saviors.
And if you do the work of actually studying to show yourself approved, right, then you will find the similarities and the lineage, the thread of all of these things that are being studied. And if you take man out of it, now, if you take us out of it, then you see that it's all one. Man makes it separate and individualistic, and it creates all the denominations of the Church of God in Christ and the first AME and all that. And then you got this kind of Muslim and that kind of Muslim, and you got this kind of Jew and that kind of Jew. But in truth, we're all serving the one true God.
Amen.
And he has many names, many forms, many practices, right? But truly, only one way. And that's peace, love, and truth.
Yes,
and the one way is peace, love, and truth.
Yes,
and,
indeed.
And if you stay within that, then you'll be all right.
Yes, indeed. Brother Love. Spoken.
Introduced in 1977, Black Lightning is about a former Olympian metahuman turned high school principal.
Yeah.
The actions of Tobias Whale, which is your character, inspired Black Lightning to become a hero.
Yeah.
How did you start acting, and how did you get on the role of Black Lightning?
Well, I think that we're all playing a role of some sort. I'll start with that. I think we're all acting and we're all playing some sort of role. And the more we become self-aware, we're able to understand what that role is. And if we are continuing to grow and develop and evolve, that role becomes a purpose, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about my career, and if you look at what I was able to do musically, I was always developing a character.
Yeah.
And a character that was constantly evolving.
So many names.
So many names.
Yeah.
Like he had so many names.
Yeah.
And he evolved in so many ways. You know, I mean, from crack music to Neighborhood Wonderful.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And it that is ultimately the duality of man. So acting for me and rapping for me are one hand washing the other and both hands washing the face.
Yeah.
Right? So I always wanted to do it. And I knew I could do it, but I did not know that I could be it until I saw it.
You saw it, yeah.
Right?
Keeps coming back to that, yeah.
Right? I couldn't know I could be it until I saw it. And to be truthful, back to my good brother, my big brother, X to the Z Exhibit. He allowed me to see it at close proximity.
When he started acting.
Yeah. Right? So it was in my living room. The reason why I became such a pivotal part of his rap career in Weapons of Mass Destruction as a writer, not just featured on there, but as a writer, was because his film schedule with the movies and Pimp My Ride and all that became so heavy.
Yeah.
But he had this obligation to do this record. So I was there on the set of Derailed, and I was there on the set of Gridiron Gang, and I was there, you know what I mean, and on Pimp My Ride every day, you know what I mean. So I was kind of seeing this and watching him go through the transitions of that, opened my palette up, and then I started putting myself out there, and I started doing a little bit of homework quietly. I wasn't really overt with that, you know. I think that sometimes we must stay low and keep firing until our aim is right. So that's what I do. I do that even in music, you know. Musically, I think, you know, I create that way. You know, I create in solace, and I like to. I'm an avid studier. Always been a studier and a reader, and so I would do a lot of homework, and then I would try to find opportunities to get around it. A friend of mine that named Anissa, who's a huge casting director.
I know. Oh, I was about to add Anissa Williams.
Yeah, Anissa Williams. Yeah, that's my friend. When I was in high school, not even high school, I had dropped out by that time, but I used to date one of her friends a long time ago, and that's how she knows me. And now I'm Krondon, you know, with Kweli and Exhibit and all this stuff, and Snoop and all this stuff, right? So, and now Twitter's around, right? So this is 2009, 10, I believe, and now Twitter's the thing, you know? So I'm on Twitter, you know, Twitter was the thing. That's when everybody started following each other and all this stuff that we now consider existence, right? That's how it began. And Anissa found me on there and started following me, and we had been friends, of course. And I didn't even know that she was a casting director at that time. You know, I just knew Sis was the homegirl, you know? And she said, hey, I'm gonna pass your information to this lady. I think you'll be great for this role. They're looking for somebody that looks like you. Okay, cool. And that ended up being my very first audition for a show called Harry's Law that was on NBC with Kathy Bates. I went in there, they wanted me to audition for the lead role, a co-starring 2-episode arc on this thing. At that time, I didn't know what that meant. Right. You know, and this was around the time, this is Arms and Hammers. We're doing On Point Video and all that at this time, because I remember. I remember very distinctively this era. We're doing On Point Video, Too Short, and all that craziness of that era. And I went and did the audition, did not get the lead role that I went and auditioned for, but made an impression in the room enough to where the casting director and the directors liked me enough and offered me another role that was on the show. And I accepted that role. Yeah, man. And went and did my first episode of television, 8 days, and made more money. And that was 8 days, and I had made, you know, doing several shows at that time. Right, rap shows. And several rap shows at the time.
I just got a little taste of
it. Oh my God, yeah. You know, and that kind of opened me up. And then the next thing, because then at that time, you know, we are Soul Assassins, and my uncle Esteban Oro, who's one of the most talented photographers and visual artists of our time. Had directed a couple videos for us. He did Criminal Set for us and a couple things and a couple magazine covers and all of that, right? He was doing a short film for Microsoft right when the internet became boom and YouTube was booming and all that. He was doing a short film for Microsoft. And the brother who, I can't remember, his name is Michael, who played McLovin, but him and Common were starring in this short film for Microsoft that Esteban Oriol was directing. And Esteban called me and said, hey, you want to come be in this movie? You want to come play a part? I'm doing a short movie. Come play a gangster in this movie. Right. So I went and I did. And on that set, right? And I think he might have paid me like $500 or something like that. On that set, I was able to sit with our brother Common and pick his brain and ask him a bunch of questions, and like, 'cause at that time he was already acting and stuff, you know. And I'm like,
shout out to Common.
Shout out to Common, big shout out to Common, because he gave me a lot of jewels that day.
Yeah, he's like 1,000 times better than me as a rapper. I don't know if you knew that.
I heard that from somewhere, Talib, actually.
You know,
continue, please.
Yeah, opinions are like assholes, right? I get it. Yeah. You know what, the key with things like that, brother, is you are very much so self-aware.
Oh, yes.
So you know who
absolutely.
you are. You know who you are and whose you are.
Yeah, you know what it is.
So, yeah, he gave me a lot of pointers. Then Anissa sent me on like 3 commercial auditions, one for Toyota, one for Lexus. She's like, put on a suit, Marvin, do you have a suit? I put on a suit, and I walked into a room with 500 people in a suit, and I said, I don't ever want to do this again. and I backed up from it a little bit because, you know, here I am, Krondon, strong arm steady. What am I doing in a suit with these 500 guys? Who are these guys? So that was the wrong way to look at it. Right. And I looked at it that way, and I went on to do my records and tour the world and blah, blah, blah. And I might have went on maybe 1 or 2 auditions after that. And I ended up getting a call one day. Again, that came by way of a friend who said they were looking for me. And it was for a show called Black Lightning on the CW. And I had never heard of Black Lightning. I was a big comic book fan, but I had never heard of Black Lightning.
Right.
And I immediately, when I received the audition, it was about 3 or 4 days away from when I had received it. So I had about 3 or 4 days to prepare. And I did the audition. And the lady liked me, Vicky Thomas, shout out to Vicky Thomas. She liked me, called me back and said again, do you got a suit? Put on a suit. Right. And I said, wow, here goes that suit thing again. Right. You know, at that time, I knew what I didn't know about 5 years prior, right? Because again, time had passed. I had grown. I had evolved. I had become more self-aware because this is, again, remember, the undoing is an ongoing, everyday process. You're not gonna get to a point where you say, I've undone. Yeah. No, you're undoing until it's over. And when it is done, much like the Father and his Son, it is finished.
That's right.
When it's finished. So I did my homework. I did it. I put on the suit. I saw the correlation between the Father God saying, what I have for you is for you. If you didn't listen then, it's okay, because I'm going to call you again.
Because in 1977, somebody wrote a character of a black man with albinism who you were destined to play.
Destined to play.
It's divine, like you
divine.
said.
It's totally divine. And whether I answered the call those other times, which I did answer the call, I just got in my flesh a little bit after the third audition, right? But yeah, the divinity is that here you are again, I'm knocking on your door. And I need you to come as I want you to come, not the way you want to come. Yeah. This has nothing to do with you, sir. I need you to put this suit on.
That's right.
So I put the suit on. And
you played a slimmer, sexier version of Tobias Wells.
Thank you,
what
brother.
you said.
I always said that I was the GQ version of Tobias Wells. I always said that. So yeah, I went on and put on the suit, and that was audition number 2. And I put on the suit, and she liked me even more. She sent my tape to Warner. They liked me, and they called me in for a camera test and another audition. And it was about a 4-week process, and they gave me the job, and my life changed, brother.
That's beautiful.
I mean, it already was a wonderful life, and is a wonderful life up until that point, but it really, really was
new experience, new family,
new everything, new everything.
I want to take the time, and this show, we don't have enough time to really give everyone their flowers. But the ensemble cast of this show, it was on for 4 years. Cress Williams, Nefessa Williams, China McLean, Christine Adams, Jordan Calloway.
Yes.
The Painkiller shit this guy is incredible.
Yes, sir.
You had to master combat fighting in TV style.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, man.
Like, because you be kicking ass. Because Tobias Wells, the character, he is a kung fu master, master hand combat. And it's an interesting thing because I remember seeing a fight scene where he's like, early in the thing where it's like Black Lightning doesn't have the power. He's like, now you have to fight me like a man.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting to me about Tobias is that mortality.
Yeah.
Coupled with the fact that he's not aging.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
You can't die. And all.
Right.
Yeah.
I asked you about Stanley Crouch earlier. Stanley Crouch is a jazz critic, very hard on black people.
Yeah.
Do you know, you talk about being on Twitter. Remember being on Twitter and they call somebody a hotep?
Yes.
Like a hotep, like I feel like Tobias Wells is like what happens when a hotep becomes an extremist.
Yeah. He's an elitist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. His blackness is that of an elite caliber.
Yes.
And he is such a king that the paupers are a lot of times his people in his eyes, you know, and that's because that's who he's around the most, you know.
You talked about your parents not understanding the albinism, and
Yeah.
one of the craziest parts, a scene that gets like they put this scene of Tobias and his father and the sister.
Yeah.
I've seen the scene online put to music. People make their own music videos. It's such
Really?
a powerful scene.
I never
Because I was
seen
looking
that.
on YouTube to try to figure out. I wanted to see like the best of Tobias, so I could ask you some questions.
Yeah, yeah.
I kept coming across this scene,
Right.
but the scene is powerful because you talk about his elite, his blackness.
Yeah.
He loves his blackness and where he comes from so much that he hugs his father to death.
Yeah.
That to me is a powerful metaphor.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
The Moby Dick metaphors.
Yeah.
He's the great white whale. He has a harpoon.
Yeah.
The fact that, you know, Herman Melville's character was always looking for that great white whale.
Exactly.
There's so much to this.
Yes, sir.
And there had to be some parallels to that character in your own life.
Well, in certain instances, like you know, with my parents, you know, to their credit, I just think that the times, you know, they had never seen it before themselves, and they didn't have the tools to do the work to get the dirt off of them,
Yeah.
so that they can be fully realized and then empower themselves through education and information.
Yeah.
So now they are now in a position to teach, you know, and to their credit too, the times information wasn't as accessible as it is now, you know, and things weren't as advanced as they are now. You know, it doesn't sound like that long ago, but that was a different time. So to that, and then, but they never, you know, unlike Tobias's father didn't like the fact that he had albinism.
Right.
He felt like it made him less of a man, or like, you know, and that's why I think Tobias Wells' reign and power is so significant to him. His ego and his narcissism is so significant to him because he feels like he's conquered everything that was put in front of him, even the negative connotations given to him by his father, his own father, the fact that his mother left him. And he was left with that. So he was able to persevere past so much. And I relate to that part of it.
Yeah.
But not to the point of where his, you know, because I think my mother and father loved me very much. They just didn't have the tools. Right. You know what I mean? When Tobias' father was a good man, other than he just didn't like him.
Right. That was T.K. Carson?
T.K.
But
Carson,
can you be a good man besides not liking your son?
Well. No. I guess you have a point there. No, but in truth, what I'm saying is that he did all the things that were what you consider he was supposed to do. Like he went to work, he took care of his family. You know what I mean? He didn't leave his wife. His wife left him. You know what I mean? And left him with the kids. And he was stuck to raise the kids. Right. And he had that air of anger and angst based off of that. Resentment was piled up to his neck, you know? And I mean, I'm doing this because I had to kill him. So I had to kind of reconcile what he was going through too.
And killing fathers is like Tobias' thing.
Yeah. I had to, I had to do that a lot.
Yeah.
But no, so I do relate to him though. What the things that motivated him, you know, a lot of those things I experienced, if not from my parents, but from outside forces and things. So he's an elitist. And I also, one thing I related to Tobias, I probably never shared this, I don't know if I have. I related to the fact that he was able to get to a place in the community that everyone who he experienced coming up didn't see.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Everything that
because of the age thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They didn't see it.
Yeah.
They didn't foresee it. And he was able to, I mean, come on.
Yeah. I want to shout out the creators, Mara Brock Akil and Salim Akil.
Yeah, man.
Their sort of activist mindedness and their family values really added to the show. I didn't know before I started looking back that they were behind the game and Girlfriends and Being Mary Jane.
Oh yeah, Being Mary Jane, yeah.
I love how the show was not afraid to tackle racial issues. Some of those shows look like my Instagram feed.
Right.
Because when I'm like, I see them tackling white nationalism.
Yep.
You got Anissa, she's an activist superhero using her powers to destroy Confederate statues.
Yeah.
Like I don't like me seeing this on television.
Yeah.
With commercials in between it.
Yeah, man.
Is nuts.
Yeah. All credit to Salim Akil, brother.
Yeah.
And of course the studio and everybody allowing us to do that. But Salim is a very, very militant Black man and self-aware Black man. Not just, I don't say militant in the sense of violent, but militant in the sense of being self-aware and very.
The music is great, adds to that.
Everything.
Militant music,
his understanding and he's such a knowledgeable brother that he allowed his art to represent who he was in his soul and spirit, and do it without hopefully offending too many people or compromising his own integrity. Right? He really is, man. I'm very, very honored to have such a platform that's so influential and impactful for us as Black people.
That's right.
That Black Lightning is. The fact that it was on the CW, the fact that it was Warner Brothers is all just extra icing on the cake. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I sometimes wish that it was on a cable network, because we would have been able to say and do more. Yeah. But I like the fact that we were able to.
What characters were saying ninja?
Yeah, exactly.
It would have been great on Netflix.
Like, we said nigga one time
right.
in season 1 or season 2, I forget. He was able to get one.
I'm supposed to let these ninjas punk me?
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah. It's just one of those things where you have to look at the root of it. The Bible says you'll know a tree by its fruit. I always like to say and add to that, if I could, that you know a tree by its root as well.
That's right.
So the root of Black Lightning is rooted in consciousness, in self-awareness, and Black nationalism too. You know what I'm saying? If you look at what was
all
happening,
sides of it too, the respectability, the radicalness,
and the family component.
Yeah.
That we've never seen of a strong Black man who loves his
daughters,
family.
yeah.
Even it's funny because even in this is one thing I took from the show, and if in my own life, like me and my daughter's mother aren't together. My youngest daughter's mother aren't together right now, But one thing that I learned from that show, and not that I learned from it, one thing that I saw on that show that we don't see is when a family is separated in some ways, but you can never tell the difference. They're still very blended, much so together.
Blended.
It's not even blended. It's just it hasn't broken.
Right.
It might be stretched.
Yeah.
But it never got broken.
That's right.
They still had dinner together. They were still on the couch together. They still dealt with all issues together.
I wanted that.
And that's something you don't see on TV, but it's something that you live in real life.
That's right.
You were on Tombstone on the Spider-Verse, so now you're part of the Marvel DC family.
Yes.
Do you ever do Comic-Con?
I've done the last 4.
Ooh.
Last 4 years in a row.
How's that?
That's one of the best experiences, as far as this job is concerned. It is a day to, like you said in the beginning of this, it's like a day where you just receive flowers all day.
Oh, yeah.
For someone like me.
Yeah.
And then on another hand, you can also just indulge yourself in all your kid fantasies and do the things that you've always wanted to do that you weren't able to do because you didn't have access or exposure.
Right.
And now you can, really just explore your inner child, man. And that's what I do on those weekends. I mean, you caught us at one of the first things we did down in Austin. And that wasn't even a Comic-Con, but I was still able to, in those settings, just explore the inner child, man, and kind of get back to your root of the things that made you imagine and dream and,
Yeah.
So I love it. Yeah, I do the Comic-Cons all the time. Well, last year, we did it virtually, so that was okay. It was good, but it wasn't the same.
Not the same.
But San Diego, I suggest to anybody, if you love anything film and television, anything creative, especially like, sci-fi and the comic world, but not just that, just anything film and television too, to go down to, because now it's become such a corporate event for film and television, all networks. Yeah, you have to be. If you got a TV show, you got to go to Comic-Con. Yeah. So I would suggest to go down there and experience it.
Do I got to dress up?
We're definitely dressing up. No. We're dressing up.
No, you don't got to dress up. But take a camera because you're gonna want definitely. It's the best people watching in the world. I tell you that.
No doubt.
For sure.
this has been one of my favorite people parties.
Oh man, thank
I've
you,
had
man.
a great time. I have one more question because right before we started this, you began to tell me about this film that you're producing.
Yeah.
You just told me the story behind Defiant. So
Yeah.
please share that with us.
Okay. The next project I'm working, well, I got a couple projects coming out that aren't out yet, but the next big thing that I'm doing, I'm working with a company right now called Legion M, and it's a new movie company that has a new motto for how they develop movies. They definitely get investments and have executive producers that are investors in their films, so they get lump investments. But at the same time, they allow the fans to invest in particular projects and buy in early on the movies and actually gain and be a part of the profits and the market share. So I really love that idea. The guys who started the company are the same guys that started Moby TV. Remember Moby TV back in the day? Same guys. And we're producing a film. It's me and Bill Duker's one of the producers as well.
Who's also on Black Lightning.
Who's also on Black Lightning.
Y'all keep bringing those classic black actors back. I love that.
Yes, indeed. And then the Wolper agency who did Roots are a part of it. And the film is called Defiant. It's the story of Captain Robert Smalls, who was the first black man elected to Congress. He got to that position by, of course, starting off as a slave, being enlisted in the Confederate Navy, and went on to galvanize the other crew members who were slaves on the ship, along with his family, wife, best friend, and his wife, to take over the Confederate ship, hijack it, do some things that I'll wait for the movie. I don't want to give the movie too away. Some real gangster shit.
Okay.
And excuse my language. And ultimately becomes the reason why we were able to fight in the Civil War. I'll just put it to you that way. He took the ship and he surrendered it after hijacking it, making it across waters and cross enemy waters, mind you. He surrendered the ship to the Union. Abraham Lincoln was so impressed by him that he asked him to be instrumental in bringing in and enlisting black men to fight in the Civil War on the Union side. Went on to win 13 more battles at sea, and was elected and the first black man in the White House.
Wow.
And went on to do a bunch of other stuff. The movie won't tell that whole story because that's like a series, but the movie will be centered around the ship and his defiant spirit. It's called Defiant, and around his defiant spirit to take over that ship and to win his first battle.
Well, I look forward to seeing this, to seeing the fruition of
it's coming together nicely too, man. You guys are gonna be surprised because I'm working with a director you guys already know and love, and I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it.
Wow. Well, I was excited to have you on here.
Oh,
and
man.
We got more work to do.
We have
Krondon.
way more work to do.
It's good
brother.
seeing you.
It's so good seeing you.
It was good to, I didn't see you the whole pandemic.
And I love you, brother. This is one of my favorite podcasts. I tell you that all the time, off air. And just what you're doing with this platform and the other platforms that you have, because this is not the only thing that you're doing, but everything that you're doing in this space of media and information and conversation and information through conversation, and it's I'm gonna be honest, something I didn't foresee you doing.
Me neither.
But that's what makes it so beautiful. You know what I mean? Because it lets me know that I know nothing. Not even about myself, right? Because I didn't foresee myself doing what I'm doing right now. So I just, every time I see it, my heart smiles, and all the things that you're doing with Dave and all that, it's just, it's just a testament, to what our good friend says, that as long as you're alive, God's not finished.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Krondon.
Yes.
Marvin Jones III.
Thank you, man.
Dizzle.